Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin, and certainly capturing the news the last couple of days is a terrorist attack in Russia. Your thoughts, Dr. Lopkin?
Yeah, this was a major attack in a concert hall in Moscow. ISIS K has claimed responsibility. So, what does all this mean? Well, first of all, it means Muslim extremists are now attacking Russia, which Putin is trying to blame Ukraine. Ukraine clearly has nothing to do with this. The United States warned Russia that the attack was coming over a week ago, a week before the attack. Our intelligence folks picked it up, and Putin ignored the warning. But I think even bigger than that, it's showing the resurgence of ISIS K, which is based in Afghanistan, which under the Trump administration we had pretty much neutralized. And now they're
Was
back
gone.
making major attacks on Moscow.
Well, I will predict this that if there is a terrorist attack of any substance in the United States, then it is exit Biden. He's finished. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think that
If
goes
it's
without saying because at this point, it's his border policies that let the terrorists in. And yes, we do know, our intelligence folks do know for a fact that folks on the watch list got in over the open border.
Yes, I think that would be the end. But also on the border, what do you think about the president of Mexico giving us, and Biden in particular, ultimatums like pay up or the invasion continues? That is perplexing, troubling, all the above, to say the least.
Well, it's definitely troubling, but I don't know how
Beyond
perplexing it
troubling.
is. The Mexican government has long had ties to the cartels. The government is corrupt. They're letting the cartels run the border. So, of course, they're standing up for the cartels because they don't want us to stop them. And I think at this point, we need to stop listening to the Mexican government, block off the border, reinstate remain in Mexico no matter what they want. And quite frankly, put the ultimatum to the Mexican government saying, if you don't want this, then you need to secure your southern border.
I think it's yes, all the above is true, but the real point that resonates with me is that it's reflective of a incapacitated president. The fact of some two bid country at this point, a basically a narco controlled government, is telling the United States, blackmailing us. Any leader with any ho hos would march right down to Mexico and say, "You're not doing, you know what, to us. We'll dictate what we're doing to you." Got it, dude? That's it. But it shows the complete weakness of Biden and his administration. And also, you could maybe go to the conspiracy theory. What do they have on Biden? I'm sure all the new leaders, world leaders, know what he's all about and his grifter operations are. But the main point beyond the conspiracy theories is, any Trump, Clinton, George W. Any president with a working brain would never put up with that. And it truly points to the fact that we have a failed government and a failed president.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much on target. The fact of the matter is, none of this, the war in
No one would
Ukraine,
put up with
the
him.
war in Israel, the border crisis, none of this would have happened under any other president. We
None. No
have
one
a
else.
weak minded, lily livered coward, and he has no concept of what he's doing. And of course, the
None.
Democratic Party put him up as a figurehead, hoping that he was going to just lead the way for Kamala to take the
She
reins.
turned out to be a moron.
She turned out to be worse than he is. So they've left themselves with no backup. And now the entire world is suffering for it.
dangerously suffering. But it brings us to where we are right now. A CNBC poll says that the race is getting a little tighter. A Harvard poll that still came out today has the basically Trump ahead by 5. I think, as Carvel said 25 years ago, it all comes down to the indictments, the legal obstacles. And for that, I throw it to you. For my 2 cents, I think the hush money payment, however flawed it is, has the most traction. I think if they explode or implode, uh, Trump is again in the White House. If they do have, if it does succeed, it's a whole new ball game. Your thoughts, and also assess the um, the the situations of all of them, likelihood of
Well,
success.
the hush money case is going to be interesting because there is no case there. The federal government looked at all the evidence and said, there's no case there. We cannot prosecute him. Bragg took a federal charge, which he does not have the jurisdiction to prosecute, tied it to a New York charge, which he did have the ability to prosecute, but because it was a misdemeanor, the statute of limitations was up. So legally, he has no leg to stand on. The question is, will he be able to stack the deck in the jury pool with a highly politicized jury that will find Trump guilty just because they don't like him? This
Yeah,
this
okay,
is
that's
completely
actually,
possible.
you articulated 100% of what his strategy is, but he could get a jury pool of complete no minds, and it could. But my question is, where's where's the Court of Appeals? Where's the higher level courts in New York?
Well, the Court of Appeals, I think, will have to overturn it. They're not going to be able to sustain a guilty verdict on a charge with no jurisdiction and that violated the statute of limitations. We
How
just
does it go to
saw.
court to begin with, though?
Well, because he's the DA. We've said this before, and it's a great line from Law and Order. A DA can indict a ham sandwich if he wants. There's no checks or balances against that. So it has to go. That's what the appeals court is for, is those checks and balances. And we
Okay, but
just
what
saw
happens if he does get convicted? What happens if he gets convicted?
it will
Does he
be
go to
immediate.
jail?
I think it'll be immediately appealed. The court is going to have to put off sentencing until the appeal. There's no way they're going to be able to put him in jail. And quite frankly, I don't even know that that there could be jail time associated with this one. This is such a minor charge that the overwhelming evidence that the attorney general said there's nothing here to prosecute. The Federal Exchange Commission said there's nothing here to prosecute. And these are democratically controlled agencies at this point saying this. So, there's not even politics involved in that one. So I'm pretty sure even if a jury says yes, they're guilty, yes, he's guilty because we don't like him, if the judge has any sense, and it's a New York judge, so I wouldn't put money on them having any sense, they'll have to call for a directed verdict of not guilty. If he doesn't, it's going to be immediately appealed. The appeals court is going to have to take it on an expedited basis, just the way they did with the Letitia James case with the bond. They took that on an expedited case and basically immediately said, no, there is no justification for this bond. We're going to lower it to $150 million. So I think the
No,
same
I
thing.
think that was the strongest case, and I think the Jack Smith case. I don't see how that goes to any success, especially with a jury pool in Florida. Okay, you have the Atlanta case. That's a train dumpster fire. You kind of much cleared the field for me, Dr. Lopkin.
Well, I think the big danger isn't actually any of the cases we've talked about, but Jack Smith's case against Trump regarding January 20th, and that's being heard in Washington, D.C. We've already seen D.C. juries throw Trump associates in jail with little to no evidence. So I think that's the one that's going to be the problem. The question is, with all the other cases already underway, can Trump postpone that one until after the election?
I think that's highly unlikely with the motivations of why this thing was even brought to brought to trial. I mean, let's just face it, the whole idea behind this, their strategy is to knock out Trump's legs before the election because that's the only way Biden's going to win.
Right, but
That's as simple as that.
the judges who are making this schedule by law have to take into consideration all of the other cases. So you've already seen the Georgia case is underway. Jack Smith in Florida is underway. The New York case is underway. So Washington cannot schedule anything until those three cases clear the decks. And at this point, that we don't even know if the Georgia case is going to be able to start up again because there's appeals in that case going on.
Yes, there are.
And there's still the Supreme Court decision we're waiting on as to whether or not Trump has immunity for things he did while in office. That would actually derail the Jack Smith's case in Washington. So
I think it's a long shot, though.
there's a
It's a long
lot
shot.
of, well, I don't know if it is. I don't think they're going to agree with Trump that he has complete immunity, but
Hmm.
I think they're going to split the difference down the middle, that certain things do have immunity, certain don't. And based on what Trump's actual actions were, because let's face it, there has already been evidence shown that he tried to have the National Guard protect the Capitol, and that was turned down.
Without a doubt.
We have the videotape where he's calling for peaceful protests, not riots. So they may protect him on that, but not on other items. The thing is, the hair that the Supreme Court has to split is that whatever they say for Trump also has to go for every other president. This is the precedent. So if they don't give the president limited immunity, you are going to see presidents indicted and go to trial over decisions they make in jurisdictions that didn't agree with it. And that's going to open up a can of worms that this is the reason we have a Supreme Court, to stop things like that from happening. So they have to tread very carefully where they go with it.
Yes, I would agree. But do you agree that the cases are really the only avenue for a Trump defeat? I mean, unless he obviously, the moon could, hit the
Right.
earth.
I
I
mean,
got it. But all things, yeah,
there's always something that
yeah,
could happen. But right now, the court cases are the Democrats' main venue for trying to win this election. And it's not
no doubt.
just Trump, because they've just hired a team of lawyers to try to keep RFK off the ballot. They've been filing court cases to try to keep a no labels candidate off the ballot. They know in a fair election, they can't win this. So they are unleashing every legal strategy they can to try to keep everybody off the ballot except Biden. It is absolutely hysterical how the party that is yelling that there is an existential threat to democracy is doing everything they can to undermine the democratic process.
Well, their mantra is you got to destroy democracy to protect it. Yeah, that's like you got to smoke to stop cancer. Okay, genius. Speaking of
I,
RFK, though, I believe he's about to or did announce. I think about
he's
to, but they know who it is. Yes,
yeah,
go ahead.
he's about to. He's actually announcing it at a live event as we're recording this.
Yep, and it
The
is Nicole Shanahan, and she's really not a political person. But the limited information I got is it's going to help him get on the ballots because in some cases, in some states, you need to have a declared running mate. And it also makes me feel
well,
better because I don't know if it was disinformation, but Johnny Ventura and Aaron
Jesse
Rodgers, that
Ventura.
was a
Yeah.
little troubling. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Please, the guy's a moron.
No,
Go ahead.
assuming that that is the person that he is going to name, this brings in a lot for him. It's not just the matter of having the running mate to get on certain ballots. This woman is the ex-wife of Sergey Brin, founder of Google. She brings with her a fortune in campaign financing.
Whoa.
She also brings with her intense connections within Silicon Valley, which, let's face it, that that was Biden's stronghold. If RFK can make inroads there, that's going to have a devastating effect on the Biden campaign.
100. Well done, Dr. Eric E. Lopkin. Once again, 100% agree. I think there's a lot. Again, it's all about the court cases. I think if things proceed without interruption, Biden is toast, and it's also optics. Teach marketing. Previous occupation was in marketing. Optics are very important, Dr.
Yes.
Lopkin. I think you'll agree with that. Whenever I see Biden, and it's not just because I'm partial, which I am, he looks increasingly feeble. Your thoughts? Going to the helicopter, going to this.
Yes.
It's
He
not a good look.
he does look increasingly feeble every time he makes another appearance. The American people see that. That's why, no matter what the mainstream media tries to do to defend him, even they're starting to say, well, he's not looking good. This is a big issue. His age is a problem. There's only so many times his supporters can tell you, behind closed doors, he's a dynamo. Really? Open up the doors and let's see that Joe Biden. And the problem is
Never going to
he
happen.
he can't sustain it. He managed to get through an
Doped
abbreviated
up.
State of the Union, but it was very obvious that he was medicated. It was obvious that they did everything they could to get him through that not quite hour and a half. If he has to do 2 hours, 3 hours at a campaign appearance, he can't do it. And that is why 87% of Americans think he is not capable of running. And you don't get to 87% without it being across party lines.
Yes, but one thing I will prick on a bit, and that is, the press um, abandoning their protection of them. AP and others are still going with a narrative that, or they just started launching the narrative that he's out in the Rust Belts, he's out in the swing states getting it done. But the actuality of it, he's showing up to events with like 10 people. Like, and half of them are probably just drunks laying on the grass that happen to be there anyway. So yeah, it's they're still trying to paint the narrative that Uncle Joe's out there kicking ass while Trump's playing golf, but obviously, you
Well,
can't hide your lying eyes.
they're always going to push that at least until we see a major turnaround in the people in the media, because they
Never.
have their bias and they cannot let this go. And we've seen this in just the last few days. It exploded because when the appellate court lowered Trump's um, bond, the mainstream media went nuts. They started yelling, there's two systems of justice, one for Trump and one for everybody else. And it's like, yes, we've been telling you that for a while, but it's not in Trump's favor. They were yelling, they were celebrating this $500 million bond that he can't possibly pay this. We've bankrupted him. For the record, yesterday, when the merger went through between um, Trump Media and the shell company that was taking it public, he made yesterday 3 billion, that's billion dollars. Today, the stock went up so much, his stake is now worth $5 billion. That's what he made in the
He,
last 2 days on this. And most of it is from Trump supporters buying up the stock because they know this is a gravy train they want to be on.
Yeah, it's
We
interesting. He's now, and they talked about how he's a shell of a financial, to all he's a shell of a financial facade, but actually he's now been elevated to the 500th in the 500th richest person in the world category.
are
How do you
right.
like that?
And we also, over the last couple of days, saw the mainstream media, specifically NBC and MSNBC, lose their minds because NBC hired Roma Daniels, the former chair of the RNC. It's like, because God forbid you should have dissenting opinion. And I did love, I generally can't stand her, but I love what Jessica Tarloff on Fox said about this. She basically said, thank God Fox defends dissenting opinions, otherwise she wouldn't have had a job. And we need these dissenting opinions. But the folks on NBC and MSNBC literally said that they should the owners of the heads of the network should apologize for hiring her. This is how bizarre the media landscape has become. They have abandoned any pretense of being actual journalists, and they are simply trying to push their opinion.
Without a doubt, but I believe here's a little prediction, Dr. Eric E. Lopkin. We've seen and we're witnessing in current time the collapse of CNN. I believe from this and Rachel Maddow, be careful what you wish for. You can get addicted to your own demise. NBC News, which basically is an oxymoron at this point, has lost all its credibility and it will begin to shed, if it's not already, viewers, listeners, subscribers, you name it. Even Peacock, I think, is in big trouble. But your thoughts on that? I mean, it's not even the facade of news.
Well,
And then Morning Joe, that I actually used to listen to from time to time. Grow a pair, dude. I mean, he was a Republican at one time. Now he's married to Anita, and all of a sudden he's the left of Chairman Mao. It's pathetic. Not the
well,
brightest bulb in the Christmas tree.
Scarborough lost his mind.
Some
But
more.
yeah, I mean, you mentioned Peacock. Peacock started out in bad shape and it hasn't been able to pull out. The problem with Peacock had nothing to do with the ownership of the network or a bias or anything like that. It was simply a weak streaming service that was too late to the party and they can't catch up. But I think NBC's ownership and the heads of the network see the problem. I think that's why they hired Daniels, because they know they've got to start moving back to actual journalism. So they're trying to rescue NBC News while MSNBC is going down the tubes. I mean, MSNBC's ratings, the only network they're beating on a regular basis is CNN.
Well, we beat CNN. Just
Well,
kidding.
you know,
However, though, you look at what's that?
I mean, that's the
Go ahead.
problem, though. I think NBC's owners realize this and they go, we've got to start fixing this. That is going to have major consequences for MSNBC because either they're going to have to slap down the on air talent on MSNBC or they're going to have to fire them.
No question about it. But it's a mirror of what it was trying to be done or attempted at CNN 6 months ago, whatever time flies, a year ago, when new management came in. They were going to make it normal. Trump came in for a town hall. The place exploded. And now it's back to Shittsville and Shittsville ratings because the inmates were running the asylum, and now you still have Anderson. Can I yawn now? And the Red J Tapper. Can I yawn? Oh God! I mean, watching that, I'd rather watch the Yule log for our New York listeners than watch that
There
dumpster
is,
fire.
there is, there is, however, a big difference in the business atmosphere between CNN and MSNBC, specifically between Comcast, NBC, and Time Warner that owns CNN. Time Warner is in very weak shape. In fact, there were talks that they might merge with Paramount and CBS. There's been numerous people making bids for them. They are prey at this point, which is why they couldn't stand up to the on air talent at CNN. Comcast isn't in that situation. From a business point of view, Comcast is still very strong. They've got a lock on NBC, which isn't doing poorly in the ratings, unlike MSNBC. They have the strength to be able to say, you know what, if you can't get on board, we will do this without you. Here's the door. Where CNN couldn't do
Great
that.
analysis. Once again, you're 100% correct. They didn't have the leverage. I'm talking about CNN or the financial strength, and they couldn't pull it off. They couldn't stop the coup attempt. And now, I mean, again, we don't have to belabor a point, but CNN ratings they're not just plummeting. It's like a wholesale
No.
dumpster fire. But it is interesting when you talk about optics, and I agree with Carvel, uh, the former strategist for the Clintons and Bill Clinton. Obviously, it's the economy stupid of 25 years ago. I do like this because I was thinking it. I was thinking about it in these terms, but couldn't put my exact finger on it. But I'm talking about the feminization of the Democratic Party. He basically said that it was a bunch of whining, cackling girls, and they lost anyone with any kind of ho-hos. Your thoughts, because I think that's absolutely true. Even you look at the Biden administration, I mean, the woke crap and all this other crap. Yeah, it's good for a little while, for amusement, but it's not getting exactly the burger and the football guys and gals out there. They become feminized, and I think that is a good analysis. It ain't happening.
It is a good analysis. He's not the first one to bring this up. Bill Maher has actually been talking about this for a while. And if you take a look at the polls, there's a lot of talk about how the Biden administration is losing African Americans. Well, if you really look, they are losing African American males hand over
Yes.
fist. They're doing slightly better with African American females. If you look at Hispanics, they're losing Hispanic males hand over fist. They have gone so far to kowtow to the liberal women. Uh, I'm blanking on the term now, but there was this great acronym that it was liberal females something, and I can't remember what the acronym is. But these aren't people that have any experience in policy. These are folks that promote victimhood. And their whole their whole platform is, you've been a victim all your life, you just didn't know it. We're going to save you. And the fact of the matter is, first of all, they're trying to protect them against males. So what is that doing? It's causing males to flee the Democratic Party. They're saying enough is enough. Why should I support you when everything you're doing is trying to tear me down? And that goes across race, across religion. They are losing males all over.
Yeah, but it also has other implications. When you have the wussification of a party, you used to have Scoop Jackson back a billion years ago. At least you had some ho-hos. JFK had some ho-hos. You look at in the international world, no one takes this wussy party serious. They didn't take Obama serious, the girly girl, and they don't take Mr. Dementia and his cackling little sorority girls serious
No, they
as
don't.
well.
They
Correct?
don't. They don't take us seriously, and it goes back to a quote from Obama, who said, "We will lead from behind." Leading from behind is not leadership. It's called following. That is not leadership. Leadership is giving a direction and working with others to achieve that direction, not following someone else's direction. And this is where the Democrats have been going. And it's only really recently that it's been termed feminist. It was just weak prior to this. So I actually have a problem with referring to it as feminist, because
No,
there
I
are
think it's feminization, becoming a wuss.
if
No, no, being a
well,
feminist is fine.
but
Being a
no,
woman is
even
fine. Being so call it the wussification of
yeah,
a party. There you go.
wussification I would go with, because let's face it, there are many really strong women in politics, in business. And these are not people that I would ever call weak. They're not people that I would ever call indecisive, and certainly not victims. And quite frankly, they're leaving the Democratic Party too,
That was
because
my next point.
they
There's very
they
few of
don't.
these women. There's very few of these women in the Democratic Party. Okay, what you're left at is wussified men, wussified women, and people who can't figure out their own sexual identity. Other than that, how'd you like to play, Mrs. Lincoln? It's a train wreck. Speaking of train wrecks, we have Nancy Pelosi. No, let's go with Camilla. She was in Puerto Rico, and they were chanting a little song, singing a little song, and the Valley girl was clapping along until someone kind of told her that they were singing a song in protest of her. Another man's a candidate.
Yeah, they were protesting Israel's fight in Gaza. They were protesting the Biden administration's support of Israel. They were protesting her, and completely ignorant of what was going on.
Moron.
She's smiling and clapping, and her aide had to whisper in her ear a
Moron.
translation, and she just stopped short. And if you've seen the video, the look on her face is priceless, because she suddenly just goes, "Oh, hell." It's
The whole hell, another disaster.
yeah,
Trying to resurrect herself, and then she puts her foot in her mouth, and she is Biden's greatest accomplishment because if you had anyone with half a brain cell, he would be check, please. They would force him out. But you had the Valley girl.
yeah, she was his insurance policy. I mean, back during the H.W. Bush administration, there was a joke going around that the Secret Service had orders, if anything happened to Bush, they were instructed to shoot quail. And now the same joke has reappeared with Harris, but now it's actually whispered, because people can no longer take the joke for what it is, a joke like, "Oh my god, that's racist." It's like, no, it has nothing to do with her race. It's because she's an idiot.
And moron. Thank you very much. Yes. Speaking of another moron, is Pelosi. She was on some show and she called Trump a grifter. The quintessential grifter of my lifetime calls someone who actually built a business a grifter. Your thoughts? And someone who's profited with no talent, no brain, and doing better than any stock portfolio by Wall Street professionals. I guess that was just her own brilliance.
Yeah, well, you're going to see more and more of this coming out of the Democratic Party because as time goes on, most independents have already seen, wait a minute, Trump's policies were right. They worked. So the Democratic Party is losing the ability to fight Trump on policy. They can't say, well, walls are ineffective. We just saw a massive invasion come over our border and they were stopped at the border wall. We've seen other countries start building border walls. So obviously, walls work. We've seen time and time again that Trump's policies were correct. They worked. And without that, the Democrats are reduced to name calling. And it's like, yeah, oh, he's a grifter. He doesn't really have any money. Again, we just said he just made $5 billion in the last 2 days. It you're going to see more name calling. You're going to see more abject lies that if you stop and fact check, it's not even going to be hard to see the transparency of the lies. We've already started seeing that from the Biden administration. They keep talking about how many jobs they've created when the numbers from their own labor department don't match what their claims are. We've already
Yeah, but let me
seen.
interject something. Hasn't this been going on? You're really looking at the Democratic Party being just a circus or a magical show of smoke and mirrors for at least 15 years. Bankrupt. I go personally. I would make the case back to the time of Vietnam, but we'll just dismiss that for now. No real. Every one of their policies, and then I will go back to Vietnam. All their policies since the Great Society have been abject failures. Theoretically correct, academically excellent. A great little thesis for a little Bo Peep MBA from Harvard, but in practicality, abject failures. So all they've done, and the only thing that keeps them adrift, is to be spin doctors. They couldn't change someone's oil, but they can manipulate the truth like no one else. Your
Well,
thoughts?
I'm going to have to push back on you because I can point to very successful Democratic policies during the Clinton administration, specifically the overhaul of the welfare system into workfare, which worked fantastically until Obama undid it. But I would say
Okay, the reason
you're
for, excuse me, the reason for the title shift of President Clinton was due to Newt Gingrich and the Congressional Congress. He was started,
but
if you do the research,
yes,
started on
but
a
he
hard
were
left trajectory. He
but
yeah, he
he
adjusted. I'll
realized
give him
that
credit. Yeah,
that wasn't going to
politically.
work. He moved towards the center. He did work with policies that I will say, what you're saying is correct about the Johnson administration, about the Carter administration. Clinton is an
Abject
out
failures.
Clinton is an outlier in this. Which
And
is
I will I
amazing.
will actually I will actually agree with you on that. Okay, 100%. I made a blanket statement. I will give you Clinton. I voted for Clinton. Our world was totally cool with Clinton, but since then, and Obama certainly perpetuated the demise. I'll give you George H. He's a Republican. He's a screw up too. But yes, since the Great Society, and now we have failure on steroids, don't we, Dr. Eric E. Lopkin?
Yes, we do. And the problem is partially because we're recycling the same old failed ideas again and again, thinking, and I love the statement, and I've heard it from Democrats over and over again, oh, but this time we'll make it work. No, the
Yep,
idea
absolutely.
was a failure. It's not going to, recycling it is not helping. You have,
It's
and
like the married husband that says, "Go ahead."
we've seen this on a microcosm within New York City, where the state and city governments keep saying, well, we don't know what to do about the rising crime rate. We have to protect the criminals from being persecuted. It's like, no, we know how to fix the crime problem because Giuliani did it in the 90s. But the idea that they would take an idea that worked, that was done by a Republican, is anathema to them. They can't even conceive of that.
And that's why the Clinton example of the 1990s could never happen nowadays, because the Democratic Party of even the 1990s, that train, that is a bullet train that has left the station,
Yes, and
never
we
to
and we
return.
saw we saw that in 2016 when Hillary literally campaigned against ideas that her husband had passed.
Yeah, there you go. That was the quintessential example. Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. And that I increasingly think the most endangered species is a moderate Democrat. It looks good on paper. They put that up as the image, but behind the curtain, they're increasingly radical, anti American socialists. And sorry, that's how it is. On kind of a lighter note, kind of a troubling note, though, P. Diddy, right? His houses were raided, and there's speculation that there may be some sexual assault involved. Your
Yeah,
thoughts?
this is not a lighter note. The charges that are being investigated include sex trafficking, drug trafficking, sexual assault. We're talking about a case on the level of Jeffrey Epstein. This
Wow.
is this is not a lighter note by any stretch of the imagination. People have come forward, they've been interviewed. The Homeland Security, and I am still trying to figure out why this was Homeland Security and not the FBI doing it. But Homeland Security raided his Miami home, raided his Los Angeles home, confiscated his phones prior to the raid so that nobody could be warned. This is a serious ongoing investigation that's coming out of the New York office. And yeah, if and there are people coming forward saying, yes, we knew this was happening. I mean, this is going to make Harvey Weinstein look like a choir boy if these charges are true. I mean,
And
we're talking about an investigation on the level of Jeffrey Epstein and behavior on the level of Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I do want to point out I have not seen any evidence. I don't know that he's guilty. I'm just saying this is what the investigation is.
also, the show me the money guy, he may also be involved. Gooding Jr. Yeah,
Yes,
that's
he
been
was
out there
named
as well.
also.
Now, the old adage, I have a bridge to sell you. I did have a bridge to sell you in Baltimore. That's no longer here. Your thoughts?
This was a catastrophe. Um, the Key Bridge collapsed when a boat crashed into one of the supports. There was a problem with the boat just prior to it crashing. The lights on the boat went off. They went back on. They went off. They sent a Mayday message saying they had no ability to steer. They crashed into the support of the Key Bridge and the bridge collapsed. Now, thank God this tragedy happened at 1:30 in the morning when there was virtually no traffic on the bridge. There was a construction crew working on the bridge filling potholes, but a structural engineer has come forward and said there's no way that this crash should have caused the entire bridge to collapse the way it did had the bridge been structurally sound at the time. So there's questions about the crumbling infrastructure of the country as a whole. And with that, I do want to point out one thing that I think has been very underreported, and it's something that I am very grateful for, actually. The rescue team that responded to this catastrophe was scrambled out of New Jersey, and they were in flight minutes after the bridge came down. So their response time was fantastic. They got there, faster than anybody had any right to expect them there. This response was tremendous. And we need to be grateful for first responders who are capable of reacting that way.
Did Mayor Pete make it as quickly? I haven't seen him there yet.
Mayor Pete was called later on. The
Mm-hmm.
governor of Maryland, at a briefing somewhere around 9:30 or so this morning, had said he already spoke to Mayor Pete. The Biden administration has said the federal government is going to swallow the cost of replacing the bridge, which, let's face it, after all the money they put into that infrastructure bill, this is where that should be going, because this is the keystone of infrastructure. This is going to cause damage to the port. It's going to damage imports and exports to the country. It's going to have an effect on our economy. This is what infrastructure is all about. Not putting up traffic cameras to catch speeders, not putting money into the Green New Deal. Infrastructure is fixing our bridges, our roads, our tunnels.
Are you trying to tell me that the infrastructure bill wasn't about infrastructure? That I was lied to?
Yeah, I hate
It's a
to be the one.
rhetorical
I know
question.
I hate to be the one to break that news. I can only say you heard it here last. I mean, this is.
Yeah. Well, Mayor Pete, it's another collapse, so to speak, of Mayor Pete's political aspirations. Obviously, he was not directly involved, but yes, he's not the greatest. He was not the genius that everyone portrayed him to be, and I hope it doesn't hurt that shining city on the Atlantic that is Baltimore. God knows that's quite a place to visit. Anyway, Dr. Lopkin concludes another edition of Carnivore Bites. If our listeners want to contribute, they can, can't they?
Yes, let us know what you're thinking. Go to the Carnivore Radio Facebook page. Send us a message and let us know. You can also find us at xvadio.com/connect. Let us know what you're thinking, what issues are important to you. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites, as well as the rest of the Xvadio network, at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. We'll be back next week.
We'll see you then.